Welcome to the XY Advisor podcast, where it's our goal to help you become the best financial advisor possible and drive the positive evolution of financial advice. Established in 2017, Goodman's creates sustainable investment solutions for advice professionals and retail customers. Focusing on tools that help customers engage with sustainable and responsible investing, the goal is to play a key role in redirecting capital to environmentally sustainable, socially responsible, and ethical business. The Goodman's Advisor Portal is a discovery, analytics, research, and advice support tool designed to give advisors the confidence to determine their clients' responsible investment needs, analyze portfolio holdings, and access institutional-grade environmental, social, and governance research for over 7,000 global equities, ETFs, and funds. G'day, Clayton here from XY Advisor. Today, as a part of our ethical investment series, I've got the pleasure of chatting with Marco from Sustainalytics today. Now, Marco, someone, I sort of put the call out to my network and said, I really want to interview some experts in this area. And Marco's nice enough to give us some of his time today. So, mate, thanks so much for coming on.
Happy to be here, Clayton. Thanks for the time.
Oh, of course. All right. Well, so let's kind of maybe start at the basics, because this sort of 5-part series is all about how to get financial advisors from not knowing much or anything about ethical investments up to a point where if a client walks into their door, they can handle conversations, their ability to be able to maybe start advising on this topic. That's kind of the goal of this series. So what would you consider to be the definition of responsible investing?
So that's a good first question. So I think that responsible investment is a term that's referred in a wide spectrum way. So it's effectively looking at responsible investment beyond looking exclusively at financial returns. So recognizing that investments actually can have both positive and negative impacts on people and the environment. I think what's important to flag about responsible investment is that there are also other terms that are used or can be used interchangeably depending on who you're speaking with, such as ethical investing or socially responsible investing or impact investing. And I thought I'd maybe highlight what at a very broad level, what the key differences are, and then how these are applied across the industry. So, ethical investing is effectively looking at investing based on a broad set of beliefs and values. So looking at really what people believe in and using that as the determinant to make investment decisions. The next one, which I'd say broadly encompasses responsible investment, is an approach that more broadly integrates social, environmental, and corporate governance factors into decision-making processes. And lastly, impact investing, which actually looks at proactively having positive contributions to people and environments, looking at things like affordable housing or renewable energy. So I think broadly speaking, that's how it's defined. Right. I'll turn back to you.
NDIS. So NDIS, National Disability Insurance Scheme. I know something, the way that you were just talking about it just then. I know that there's an investment mandate that's coming out shortly that says, okay, because the government is creating this national disability housing and paying the rent essentially for people with disabilities, there's a guaranteed, government-backed income to be received from as rent from properties that have been sort of fitted out and kitted as being able to handle people, with disabilities. So I guess my question is, an investment like that, because it's government backed, you can kind of sort of earn decent income, right? There's lower risk. There's locked in tenants, being the government, and then because it does something, let's call it nice, right? So because your investments are housing people with disabilities, does this fit into a definition of socially conscious investments, or like does it just need to serve some social good?
Look, I think broadly speaking, yes, it really depends on the investor that you have this conversation with. But I think that the key takeaway from impact investing is that there is a proactive intention to actually have positive contributions. So, affordable housing is just one example, but we can also look at, green buildings or green infrastructure or renewable energy or energy efficiency, electric vehicles. So, there are major trends or major themes that can be used as a vehicle or as a channel to actually deliver positive contributions or impact. Another one that comes to mind is it's called sustainable finance, so providing financial services to underserviced communities. So look, there's many ways that this can be approached, and I think that the key takeaway, and I think we'll probably discuss this later on, is having a conversation that means something to the client and the person who's in front of you, and understanding what really floats their boat, what really ticks them and drives them, and then guiding them towards that direction.
Well, let's jump into that then, because would you say that there are, let's call it levels to ethical investment, responsible investing? So let's say, because this is relatively new, I'm sure that there are going to be people that focus on this a lot, but there's going to be probably maybe a lot more surface versions of ethical investments. Let's say I'm someone that wants to do good with my money, but I don't really want to dive into anything specifically. So let's say you're the financial planner and I walk in as a client and I say, look, I just want a certain portion of my portfolio to make sure that the results from the investments are doing good in the world. How the hell do you respond as a financial advisor to that?
Well, I think, firstly, I'm not a financial
Sure.
That's a caveat, but I think there's some basic steps to really understanding what ticks your client. And, if you come to me and say, I want to do good, and some form of good, there is you basically have a blank canvas to work with. So I think the first step is to ask the basic questions. So ask your client what matters to them. Do they care about environmental causes? Do they care about social causes? What's important to them? Basic questions like, do they consider the type of companies that they buy goods and services from and their social or environmental reputation?
That's a good question. Right. So you can basically, that's even a good litmus test, hey? So that might even be a good introductory question to say, do you purchase in your day-to-day life any goods or services, or do you avoid any companies in your day-to-day life that, like from an ethical point of view? So that even might be a cool little way to sort of broach the situation or the concept in an easy to understand fashion, because the last thing you want to do as a financial planner is make it more complicated for your client. Like, you don't want, so it's kind of like a client comes in and you're getting to know everything about them, because the advice process is literally, you know, this person walks in with dreams and goals and aspirations and dollar figures in their head and expenses on a day-to-day basis, and they've got assets here and sort of complicated financial life. And then the goal of the financial planner is to literally figure all of that out, which takes a while, then educate them as to, what are, from their point of view and in their situation, what are high level, the best sort of immediate steps to take, intermediate steps to take, and long-term steps to take. So in amongst all of this, you could call it a maelstrom of information of back and forth. The last thing that you want to do is complicate it by adding in sort of something left of field. And so I think that's kind of been one of the reasons of hesitation with broaching this subject, because you're going through something so significant and personal to the individual that's sitting in front of you that it almost seems a little bit rude to put onto them an additional layer of hurdles or requirements for them to start thinking about, rather than just simply what's the best thing for them, because that's kind of the point of financial advice. However, I kind of dig that question that you've just put in, because that way you can kind of gauge where the individual is at without sort of scaring them and putting them in a mindset of something else to think about and a complication. So if perhaps during your fact-finding process, that if you ask the question, are you avoiding or do you purposely purchase from any companies because of any ethical reasons, that I feel is actually a really good tip or entry into whether you should broach this subject with someone or not. So I think that's a really cool question.
Yeah, look, and I totally agree. And what you've noted, clearly hits the mark, which is you don't want to make this conversation more complex than it needs to be. It's all about asking really simple questions. And there's a term that's been thrown around these days a bit, which is financial coaching, because these conversations effectively tend to be more of a coaching process rather than a specific advising. And I think this is where asking these very simple questions not only enable you to discover what matters to the client, but also engage with them on issues that really matter. And that results in two things. One, gives you better information to help them meet their goals, but two, also creates a much stickier relationship in connection with that client.
Yeah, because I think probably making sure that you're broaching this subject with the right client is really important to that client. And if it's not important to them, then you're kind of putting a blockage or another hurdle in the way. So, man, I'm a big fan now, as of this conversation, of asking that question, which is, what are you already doing in this space? Like, if someone's, say, for example, avoiding caged eggs in Woolworths, right? And then maybe your question is not specifically, do you avoid caged eggs? It's Woolworths. But if you're framing a question along those lines, the socially conscious people are going to know what they already consider. And the people that aren't thinking about it, then you're not sort of forced to then have to explain something in addition. And also, it's a little bit rude as well. Like, if you come into my office and let's say in this example, you don't care about caged eggs, right? And I sit there and I go, hey, do you want me to tell you about ethical investments? And you go, no. And then there's going to be like a half a second of awkward silence where we both have to sit there and examine that you're not socially conscious and you're examining that as that conversation goes on. And I'm sitting there and you'll probably think I'm judging you. And it's sort of a weird scenario. And again, as an advisor, that's not your job. Like your job isn't to sort of pressure in any way someone to become, to fall into a certain ethical framework. But I think, having a question potentially in the fact find, or potentially you just bring it up in casual conversation. Yeah. Where it's like, have you avoided a home loan from a bank because they loaned money to, the oil companies that were dredging up the Great Barrier Reef? I think somehow if you can ask a question where it's super day to day and it doesn't need to immediately reflect who they are as a person, but just gives you a shortcut into whether you should broach the topic or not. Yeah, I'm a big fan. Do you have any other cool ways to sort of ask simple questions that sort of lead to bigger conversations?
Well, I mean, the thing is that's tricky is that, as you say, in this discovery process, the advisor should know their clients. So, age, aspirations, family, what they want to achieve, and these facts should enable asking questions about, for example, do you have young kids? Do you aspire for them to go to university? So is education something important to you? Is access to education something that's worthwhile, or is someone sick in the family? Is health something that's important to you? Simple ones like is waste or ocean pollution something that matters to you? Sustainable, fisheries, which that might be a bit more complex, but
yeah,
it's all a matter of being able to engage the client in a way that only the advisor is going to know in that particular moment, but using the life settings and objectives that the client is putting on the table as those channels to engage in that different conversation.
Yeah. Now, obviously, I've put you in a little bit of a difficult position because I'm asking you as an advisor, and clearly that's not your background. But I really do appreciate sort of being able to hit you with a couple of these questions because, the answers, I guess, from an advisor point of view, is super important. So let's kind of maybe swap into technology. Right. So is there any kind of tech that you're finding helps with any of this, is it robo or is there anything out there that any tools that you're finding that can help advisors assist clients in this way?
So look, I think in terms of what's there for advisors to use, there's two sides to what's available. One is research, and I think that's critical. And then there's tools. So if I, very brief pointed response to what research is available, I think the Responsible Investment Association of Australasia, RIA, has some very good tools that advisors can use. There's actually a financial advisor guide, which is quite a straightforward document that provides some research, but is mostly about tools that advisors can use. RIA has actually also created it's called the Responsible Returns Web Tool, which actually is quite a useful tool that enables advisors to search for RIA certified funds. Right. And the searches can be done based on what clients are interested in. That could be renewable energy or energy efficiency, whatever that may be, and what clients are also not interested in investing in. So screening out funds that invest in, for example, fossil fuels or tobacco or the like. So I'd probably start there. Morningstar has some good publicly available research, and what's interesting about Morningstar is they've recently been producing some research based on behavioral science and looking at whether there's any age or gender biases towards responsible investment. And effectively, I might save you the reading and let you know that they've proven that it's beyond, there's no age and gender bias in terms of, whether it's millennials or women only interested in responsible investment. And they've basically concluded that there's interest across the board. So that's still quite interesting to support.
That's fantastic. Well, as an aging male, it's good to know I'm going to have a heart still.
And look, and the last one is the UN Principles for Responsible Investment. There's a lot of research there, guidelines, thematic pieces. So I probably once have going through the RIA and Morningstar stuff, I'd probably go there if I'm interested in delving into particular issues that were important to my clients.
Right. So the UN has sort of put together what they see as their sort of the international standard, I guess. Is that kind of where that's headed?
Look, not really an international standard, but more so a framework, and then underlying research pieces that contribute to the framework. So they look at how responsible investment or ESG is applied across different asset classes, equities, fixed income, private equity. So, there's a lot of in-depth research that may or may not be relevant to all advisors. But if there is a need to access, more granular information, thematic pieces on, ocean waste or seafood or the like, there's a lot of information there that could be useful.
So talk to us a little bit about this sort of the empty promises of ESG and or what I've heard being called greenwashing. So what's going on? What is this?
So sorry, I just thought it'd be useful to finish the response because I went through the research part of what's there for advisors, but there's there's tools that I think would be important as well. So Sustainalytics obviously provides research. So we would work with larger dealer groups or wealth management firms. So if that's the case, working directly with a provider like Sustainalytics or other providers might be the best solution. Having said that, we also recognize that Sustainalytics recognizes that our clients need to access research in different forms. So we actually work with other data platforms. So, our data is publicly available via Yahoo Finance. So, if you're interested in a company, you could go in there, search it, see its environmental, social, corporate governance performance, have a bit of a high-level visibility as to whether the company's been involved in controversies, see their track record, and whether they're involved in any, business activities which you might not be comfortable investing in, like, gambling or tobacco.
What do you mean about controversies?
So effectively, we undertake research on companies' involvement in controversies.
Yeah. What kind of controversies?
So it can be any kind of controversies. Effectively, the way that we approach it is looking at what are the issues that are material to a company. So, if we're looking at a mining company, the issues are very different to a bank, to a retailer. So we're looking at what's material for that particular company, and then whether there's any controversies in their operations. Effectively, that might flag a discrepancy between what the company says it's doing and what it actually is doing in practice. So, controversies that we would pick up, for example, in Australia following the Royal Commission, there's been a lot of business ethics controversies from the banks. The Volkswagen Dieselgate was picked up as a controversy,
which was the emissions thing, right?
Yeah, the emission scandal. So these are the types of controversies that we pick up, and then obviously I'm sharing the most significant and well-known, but we pick up smaller controversies that you might not read in the newspaper.
Right. That's super interesting. So let's say 2017 Uber, for example. So if I was to look at the research done on Uber, it would go into a bit more detail around the controversies that they were involved in.
Yeah, that's correct. So there would be an assessment on the severity, the significance, the impact. So
wow.
Yeah, and that's something else that could be asked as part of the fact-finding process, which is are there issues that you've seen occur in the market that's are really against what you believe in? So are you uncomfortable, or are you totally against financial institutions charging unfair fees? Obviously there's a connection to the business ethics controversy. Yeah. So, these are also ways to ask the question that might enable you to say, okay, well, we don't want to invest in companies with certain severity of controversy, or we don't want to invest in companies that are part of a particular sector which we're against. So, there's a positive side, there's a positive conversation, but also there's a no-go conversation that could be held as well.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to so in a way, like the research, especially around what we're talking about now, is things go in and out of the newspapers or let's call it Twitter, right? So, something has a 2-week cycle. So you could be the darling of the world or the devil of the world for 2 weeks. And then, as they say, everyone forgets. But Sustainalytics in this case would register that on a permanent record, so to speak.
Look, we could call it conceptually a permanent record. There's a methodology behind it, and effectively, if, let's say, the controversy is managed perfectly from the moment that it occurs, it's possible that 3 years later it might not be in the company's record. Having said that, if for controversies which are really severe, so thinking about Volkswagen Dieselgate, example, they're still facing litigation. I think I read in the newspaper today that they just settled a class action in Australia. So that happened 4 years ago, and litigation and fines are still occurring. So for those levels of controversies and severity, they would still be part of our research.
Yeah, wow.
And I think something else to note is that not only, Yahoo Finance is available there for free. Something that's maybe a lot of listeners would find useful is that our research is actually also used by Morningstar. So Morningstar actually ESG methodology, and our company level research is then aggregated to a fund level rating. So that's applied by Morningstar in their sustainability rating, and for over 20,000 funds globally. So
so you guys give a fund a rating?
Well, Morningstar gives a fund the rating using our underlying methodology at a company level.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure there's a lot of your listeners and members that use Morningstar, so I thought that would be useful. Yeah. Our research is also integrated into platforms like BT Panorama, which also provide both company level and fund level ESG information. And one last that I thought I'd share, and you asked initially about robo advisory, so this is where this came from. And this is not robo advisory, but Goodman's, which is quite an interesting platform, as they're actually working on an advisor tool. And what's important, or what's very interesting about their advisor tool, is that it's actually it's a tool. It's not necessarily research driven. It's a tool that enables advisors to make value adjusted decisions based on their clients' investment parameters.
Yeah.
So that they can literally tweak the the voltage.
Yeah, I know Tom, and yeah, that's a really interesting product from my point of view, because one of the problems with ethical is that it is different for everyone, right? And then how do you solve the problem of ethical specialization? So yeah, that in particular has been pretty impressive to me. Yeah, man. Like, I'm a big fan. I haven't invested any money through them yet, but I'm certainly a fan of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big fan as well. At a personal level, I think it's a pretty powerful tool.
Yeah, definitely. So how do we look at this? I just want to sort of figure this out. So greenwashing. What is greenwashing? Because it's a horrible word. Like, whoever came up with it definitely came from finance, because finance as a lexicon for an industry has some of the worst terminology imaginable. And so I saw this sort of greenwashing. I was like, okay, I got to find out what this is.
Look, the reality is that the sustainability has been around for, as in the term sustainability has been around for 30, 40 years.
Right.
However, during the early days of sustainability, and this is more applied broadly across industries, not just finance, businesses started to pick up on the fact that there were very strong consumer behavioral patterns that required them to be more sustainable and responsible in how they produce their goods and services.
Right.
And in this, while some companies did very well in actually changing the way that they did business, other companies effectively started to, kind of false advertise and false market what they were doing and how they were doing it. And that's how the term greenwashing was created. And financial services, it's a similar thing where, there's some funds that claim to be sustainable, but there's no effective or real process, sustainability process or data behind it. So,
yeah, right. So it's like, they're being fraudulent in a way.
Look, yeah, that's a strong word. I'm sure that they've sought legal advice before they put this on a
right. No, fair enough. So would an example of that be clean coal? I've heard that term before, clean coal, and I was like, oh, okay. Will they wash it before? It's clean coal.
Look, I think it's tricky when we get into specific examples.
Sure.
I think that's, coal is an easy one, and it's been in the, I guess, crossfires recently, and fossil fuels are becoming, as a sector is becoming, there's increasing pressure. Not only from consumers, but by governments and also by competing technologies. So, look, that's a relatively good example. But yeah, look, I think the key point of greenwashing is not necessarily the greenwashing itself, but for advisors to understand what is actual, what sits under a responsible investment strategy, and how is it being done, and then how they can use that information about a specific product or fund to have a conversation with their clients. So I think that's what the most important point about this is.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks so much for coming on. I'm learning heaps in this process. Mate, for anyone that wants to reach out to you or to Sustainalytics, learn more, how do they get in contact?
Look, they can send an email to our general email. I think the link is in our website. If they want to reach out personally, I'm happy to have a conversation or to provide any guidance that's possible. This is what we do for a living, so more than happy to help drive that change and equip listeners with the tools that they need. So if they want to contact me personally, it's marco.sepulveda@sustainalytics.com. My last name is not the easiest, so I'm hoping you're going to write that one down.
Definitely. Mate, legend, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate your time. And also that sort of taking a bit of effort as well before having our conversation. Like you wanted to learn a little bit about XY and what we were about. And, I just thanks for caring and wanting to contribute. So yeah, appreciate it.
Not a problem, Clayton. Happy to help and look forward to further collaboration in the future.
Awesome, man. Cheers.
Thanks, mate. Talk soon.